everyone. I'm Carla Roddy, Director of Marketing here at Apps Associates. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's session, where we will review our HCM annual package offering. Today's agenda includes an introduction to our speakers, a brief overview of Apps Associates, and then I will turn it over to our speakers to provide more detail on each of our offerings. We are fortunate to be joined today by our key subject matter experts. Steve Kupa will review our benefits offering, followed by Karen Florig, who will cover compensation. Next, Brandi Duy will go over performance, and Roland Owens will finish up with payroll. For those of you that are not familiar with Apps Associates, we were founded in 2002. We are headquartered in Acton, Mass. We have close to 1,000 employees in offices throughout the US, Europe, and APAC. We are an enterprise applications and data analytics services leader with deep roots in Oracle to cloud, including expertise in HCM, SCM, EPM, and ERP. We are a trusted partner to over 250 customers. We have completed over 600 Oracle to cloud migrations and have 900 cloud certifications. With that, I would like to turn it over to Steve to cover our annual benefits package.
Thanks, Carla. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Kupa. I'm a benefits and talent certified principal consultant here at Apps Associates, and I work in Oracle's HCM cloud application. A little bit about myself and what I've done. I have over 5 years experience implementing, managing, and supporting client production and non-production environments. In those 5 years, I've helped support over 45 different client organizations from industries including pharma, manufacturing, banking, legal, and many more. When it comes to Oracle benefits, I've done a little bit of everything. I have trained anyone from end users to subject matter experts, and in some cases, executive teams. I've assisted with implementations, conversions, and merger acquisitions. And I've also resolved over 1,000 support tickets for a managed services department. Of the Oracle modules, my expertise is definitely benefits. You might call me crazy, but I do enjoy assisting customers with open enrollment and post-go-live support. In any type of work, most important thing to me, my focus is not only solving the issue at hand, but ensuring that you receive and understand root cause analysis and resolution documentation. I think this fits our company's mold. We do have a customer first focus here at Apps Associates, and your success in our partnership with you is paramount. Enough about me though. I did mention enjoying open enrollment, and this is what I want to cover with you today. Please keep in mind the presentations that you will hear are meant to be extremely high level, but we're more than happy to have in-depth conversations following today's session. Next slide, please. So what I'll cover, why Oracle Benefits is a great solution for you with a focus on scalability, capability, and user experience. You'll see that these three concepts apply to the other modules you'll hear about as well. Second point I want to address is the 3 phases of open enrollment in the cloud, which we call plan, execute, and audit. Again, I think that you'll see each module's annual event can follow this flow. So let's get into it. Scalability, right? I think that Oracle can be a great solution for any company. Whether you're a smaller company around 500 to 2,500 employees, or you're in the tens or hundreds of thousands, I think this system will be great for you. You might be a company who doesn't make many changes a year, and maybe you're only updating vendor rates. On the other side, you might be a company who makes many changes a year, including major plan designs. Outside of that number or types of changes, you might also be a company who increases your workforce multiple times a year, or even every couple of years through a merger or acquisition. In any of those cases, Oracle Benefits Platform is not a one and done setup. It's a flexible and adaptable system that can scale to the needs of your business year over year. Capability. So great, right? The system can scale, it can keep up with your size and your yearly changes, but what can it actually do for you? How can you ensure that it's a great solution for your business needs? I would say most importantly, Oracle allows for the configuration and the functionality to ensure that your insurance policies are being followed and can be transmitted to vendors via an extract, report, or an interface. A few common examples of configurations: plan waiting periods before coverages or rates take effect on an employee record, evidence of insurability certifications and the associated coverage limits or interim coverage, and lastly, post-edit election rules, right? So the rules that say an employee can only enroll in an HSA plan if they're in a specific medical plan. All of those configurations and many more are possible. And what you're going to see quickly is the thoughts of scalability and capabilities were in the mind of Oracle's development team. I think that they spent a lot of time to ensure the system leads to my third point, which is a positive user experience for both employees and managers. I would say one of the biggest pros of cloud benefits is the streamlined and the guided workflow while enrolling. Right, employees easy to follow. They go in, they want to make changes. They can only do that at an eligible period of time. They can review their contacts and add more if they choose to do so. They're going to enroll in their new plans and options, and then finally review the changes that they made to their record. On the other side of the coin, right, Oracle aims at making the managers' lives easier as well. They have made it easy for managers to execute changes on the employee's behalf. So managers can go in, they can add life events manually one by one or in batch on hundreds of employees at a time. And additionally, Oracle has provided out-of-the-box tools and reports to audit the employee population or individual processes run along the way. Next slide, please. So now you've heard a little bit about the Oracle benefits module as a whole. Let's get into the 3 phases. The first being plan. When we talk about the planning phase, we want to talk about when and what. I'm going to spend the most time on this phase because I do think it's the most important. Like anything, successful planning leads to successful execution. The when, this will be determined on a client-by-client basis, just based on the number of requirements you have and the complexity of each. But I'd say a general rule of thumb is 1 to 3 months before your go-live date. If you have an 11/1 go-live and you start planning in July, I'd say you're ahead of the game. You start planning in August, I'd say you're trending on pace. And if you start planning in September, I'd say you're starting to get behind, right? Ideally, we want to start configuration in the lower environment no later than September or 2 months to your go live. The what can you be doing during this phase? So just as I mentioned, right, Oracle is focusing on making their clients' lives easier. I would say that we too aim at lifting the burden during these stressful times, right? We understand that for many admins on the phone, these annual milestones are just one of the many assigned tasks in your day-to-day. And for many of you, you probably only address these configurations or processes once a year. So keep in mind, right, our team lives in this system daily. We have the muscle memory of configuration changes. We have the internal checklist embedded in our heads. Our goal is really to just take that experience and partner with you in assisting the management of these cyclical events with confidence, certainty, and speed. I do want to address a few things that we could help, right? Could help with, excuse me. So the first thing, a requirement session, right? We want to meet with you up front. We want to determine the scope and level of effort of the upcoming changes. We want to understand exactly what you're expecting from the system based on your requirements. And we also want to understand your level of understanding and comfortability within the system. We can create a detailed project plan, right? This is going to keep our team and your team on track. We'll have clearly defined tasks and owners. We'll identify the key milestone dates, including when you should have a P2T, when your test config should be done, and when the migration and production processes should occur. And lastly, benefit maintenance, right? We want to make sure that cleaning up all outstanding life events and action items is completed. What can you be doing? I'd say you should be meeting with your vendors and your benefits team to finalize your requirements for the upcoming year as soon as possible. These can both be functional and technical if you have new feeds. But at a high level, what are your new rates? What are your plan design changes? And when should your feed be sent to vendors? I think the sooner you have those answers, the sooner we can build and ultimately the sooner you can go live. Next slide, please. Okay, so once we get through that phase, right, we have our project plan created, our requirements are known, our owners and our tasks are assigned. It's time to start building. So we're going to start with your life event. We're going to focus on restriction rules and reinstatement rules. We're then going to build all your requirements in the test environment. We're going to test all the requirements in the test environment, eventually migrate those to production. We'll have UAT or test again once more in prod. We will run the processes to add and ultimately process the open enrollment life event. We'll address all the fallout from those processes. We'll close the life event, ending the eligibility period. And then lastly here, we will monitor what we call intervening life events using reports and analytics. So what I mean by that is if your go live window is from 11/1 to 11/15, Any of the changes from 11/16 to the end of the year still need to be captured. Your marriages, your birth of a child, really any life event from that point forward. Next slide, please. And lastly, audit. So I think audit's pretty straightforward too. We're going to want to run an enrollment report when all of our work is done. We're going to want to validate our payroll deduction feeds, validate our vendor feeds, and the last bullet here, a tabled items list. So I see this every year, right? It's a list of items that pop up along the way that we maybe didn't discuss during our requirement session. They're enhancements or gotchas that got us along the way. And we put those on a list to address when things slow down, right? Maybe in the off season. And really that's it for benefits.
We did have a question come in. What is the most important part of the plan phase?
Sure, that's a great question. And to be honest, I left quite a few tasks out of that phase just due to the time, right? I could talk everyone's ear off more than I already am about open enrollment. But for the ones that I did mention, I'd answer that question in two ways. The first way is, what do I think is the most important part from the perspective of what's most overlooked and what could provide the greatest benefit? That P to T is really important, right? I mean, everything that you hear from our team and really any consulting firm out there, including Oracle, should be test first. Do everything in your lower environment, test it out, then migrate it, and eventually get it into production. I would say this is the one exception. This is doing it in production first. And when you complete that production to test copy, you're mirroring the pods. And the reason this is so important, we avoid catching issues for the first time in our migration phase. We want to get ahead of all the curves as soon as possible. The second thing, to just answer it the way it was asked, right? What is the most important? I don't think there's one, but I'd say the three are those vendor meetings, establishing what your final requirements are as soon as possible, the benefit maintenance, cleaning up all your pending action items in your open life events, and third, that project plan. I haven't had a failed open enrollment to date, knock on wood, but I do see the hurdles and the stress levels rise when those deadlines are missed, right? Things pile up quickly, and we want to avoid that at all costs.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Karen.
Thanks, Carla. Hello, my name is Karen Florig, and I'm a principal consultant with Apps Associates. For the past 5 years, I've been partnering with clients across all industries to help them understand the full potential of Oracle's workforce compensation tool. This robust tool can be used as a solution to streamline your cyclical comp planning programs. My goal is always to maximize the experience for both administrators and end users by highlighting the functionality of this tool and drawing on my past HR work experience that includes 20 plus years of working for 2 Fortune 500 companies. During that time, I was part of the Oracle EBS implementation team and was instrumental in the cyclical administration of compensation programs. As Stephen mentioned, all of Oracle's modules are highly scalable. The compensation module is no different and enables the user the ability to design compensation plans based on your company's specific requirements. The tool was designed with the emphasis on providing a solution that streamlines the cyclical compensation planning process and ensures that you have the ability to plan, design, and execute. The Consolidated Manager Worksheet gives managers the data needed to make important decisions related to merit, bonus, or equity recommendations. The Workforce Compensation Plan tool provides you with the ability to easily display data from core HR and also provides an integrated solution that allows you to link performance templates so that the performance rating flows to workforce comp from the performance management module. Oracle's commitment to improving the administrator and manager experience is evident by quarterly upgrades that include enhancements to reporting, configuration changes, and compensation statement generation, to name a few. At Apps Associates, our primary focus is client satisfaction. And like anything, planning is the key to success. Having walked in your shoes, I know how much work goes into preparing for your critical year-end process. Our goal is to provide you with the tools and knowledge needed to successfully execute all the tasks and to provide you with the best practices and guidance on how to maximize your Oracle investment based on our expertise. The recommendation to begin planning is about 6 to 8 weeks before the go-live date. The first step is to meet with key stakeholders to determine if any plan changes are needed for your upcoming comp cycle. During that time, you should review your current plan configuration, which includes eligibility profiles, compensation statements, and worksheet calculations to determine if any configuration changes are needed. For example, perhaps you need to make a change to your bonus calculation because of a recent change to your bonus plan structure. Or perhaps you need to create a new compensation statement. Scary, right? Not necessarily when you have the right partner guiding you. I've been working with clients in the managed support role for the past several years, and together a thorough review of your requirements is the first step in developing a project plan that might include creating that new workforce compensation plan. Last year, I worked with a company to create a new equity plan to streamline the administration of the award calculations that were previously done in a worksheet, with the emphasis on providing a communication tool that could be generated once executive approval was received. Or perhaps you need to have some modifications completed to an existing workforce compensation plan. Together, we can provide you with the expertise needed to apply the methodology to your plan configuration. To help with the question of when and how, I've found that a customized compensation checklist ensures that you understand all the compensation tasks needed throughout the compensation planning process. An optimization review is a way to identify changes in plan configuration that might include a recent enhancement to ensure that you are taking full advantage of the functionality that exists. Last but not least, during this planning phase, we highly recommend that you schedule a P2T to guarantee that you have a good platform when you begin configuration and testing. The execution phase focuses on completing the configuration in your test environment. And yes, I did say test, because the best practice is to complete all changes in a non-prod instance before migration to prod. If you've completed a P2T recently, you'll find that this will help you set the stage for providing a good foundation for completing configuration and testing, especially if you've had a recent acquisition or a reorganization. Speaking of which, end-to-end testing will ensure that your plan is configured correctly, but also provides an opportunity to become comfortable with the functionality that can provide support to your managers during the planning phase. The customized checklist will help you to stay on track and provide you with a good test plan. Let's fast forward. And approximately 1 week before go live, you should begin the migration to production to allow for enough time to update the required changes needed, start the plan, and perform testing before managers begin planning. Finally, a review of your global settings should be completed before starting the workforce comp plan in prod, so that manager notifications are enabled during the comp planning process. Spoiler alert. This past year, there was an enhancement that allows you to set those notifications at the plan level and not at the global level. At this point in the process, manager planning has been completed. Having worked in comp, I know the relief of finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's important to understand how critical the audit phase is. It includes a number of tasks to ensure the successful completion of your cyclical comp planning process. The first one is exporting your workforce compensation plan. This can be easily accomplished, and it will allow you the opportunity to review and audit the comp plan recommendations. There are a number of delivered reports that will help you audit your compensation recommendations. For example, the discrimination detection report allows you to analyze your employee data to ensure that your company is not discriminating against those in a protected class. Once executive approval has been received, typically the communication phase begins and compensation statements are generated. This past year, I've worked with a number of clients to improve their current practice to adapt to the fact that employees were working remotely. And as a result, the communication phase had to be adapted while still allowing for that personal touch of managers having the opportunity to communicate the increase before releasing the compensation statement to the employee. Yes, that functionality did exist, but not a lot of my clients were using it, because we all know that managers don't all communicate on the same day. And as a result, the timely release of the compensation statement was not necessarily right after that conversation. However, with a recent release in an upgrade, we have now the opportunity to stagger the release of the compensation change statement. So what that means is now Once the manager has had the conversation with the employee, they can release the compensation statement to the employee so that they have that available to them via employee self-service. This is really just one example of how working with our clients, we're able to propose solutions that provide you with the tools and knowledge to execute. The final item on the list is the post-process transfer that includes posting increases, elements, and promotions back to core HR. This batch process also generates audit reports to validate that data is transferred correctly and to ensure that payroll processing is as well. Our talented team is looking forward to working with you to design a project plan to help you execute critical tasks related to your year-end compensation planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We did have a question that came in. What new enhancements were you most excited about in a recent implementation?
Well, thanks for the question, Carla. That's a good one. Oracle does a great job at continuing to improve the Oracle platform. And during this past year, they introduced the standard component salary basis functionality that provides a way to link allowances to basic salary for countries like India, so that the combined total of salary and allowances are displayed. In addition, they took it one step further, because with the 21C, they give you the opportunity to actually link that to your workforce compensation plan via the individual worker display so that you can plan for those allowances as part of your compensation planning process. This really is just one example of how the quarterly upgrades that Oracle releases is always focused on providing new enhancements that are relevant to what clients are asking for and to improve the overall functionality of the tool. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. I'm going to shoot it over to Brandi now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brandi Duy, and I'm a senior principal consultant with Apps Associates. I've been implementing Oracle Fusion HCM for the last 2.5 years, and I have close to 10 years experience as a functional HR and HRIS practitioner and consultant. I've really enjoyed working with a robust and varied client base to achieve their talent management goals using this best-in-class product, Oracle HCM. Throughout my career, I've specialized in implementing solutions that drive organizational transformations through HCM systems, integrations, and also business process optimization. I draw on my diverse professional background to build consensus among multiple stakeholders and also to help us achieve a common vision. I believe in working closely with my clients to design the best solutions for today and also their strategic roadmaps for the future. At Apps Associates, we have both technical and functional expertise and are well equipped to help supplement your HR team during these critical times of the year. Next slide, Carla. So no matter where you are in your performance design process and your organizational strategy, Oracle HCM goal and performance management can be leveraged to help you meet your talent strategies and your targets year after year. As a component of the full talent management suite, goals and performance are a cornerstone to employee rewards and development, succession planning, and also employee retention. Performance should not be thought about once a year, but should be woven into the fabric of every business so that managers and employees can be engaged and administrative burden can also be eased. An overall annual process check-in gives our clients a structured opportunity to reassess their processes and also take advantage of Oracle's quarterly release enhancements. So the planning phase, as my colleagues have discussed, there's a planning phase in any annual process. And for performance, what I'd like to discuss with you is really the annual process as being a milestone for organizations to assess what they're doing and also to adapt to best practice trends in talent management, which, as many folks know, is leaning more towards continual feedback and engagement. There are many tools within the system, such as anytime feedback, check-ins, and also predictive text for performance feedback that can be leveraged. Some of these features are continuing to expand quarterly release after quarterly release. And so the planning phase is where we take the opportunity to check in on your current processes, analyze retrospectively how performance has been going, and also discuss your strategic initiatives. Ideally, we'll be optimizing your processes and enhancing. That doesn't always mean a complete redo of your processes, but could mean small tweaks here and there to make things more efficient for your team and help you meet your goals. We'll discuss data requirements, such as competencies, goals, job profiles, and also lists of values. Are there organizational competencies that have become core to who your company is, and you want to make sure that your employees are evaluated on those competencies? We also will talk about functionality requirements. So has any eligibility criteria changed? Are there due dates that need to be implemented, new questionnaires, or even new approval flows as you've been analyzing your performance processes? We also like to talk in the planning phase about measures of success. What will it mean for this performance cycle and for talent management in your organization to be successful? How can we achieve a successful outcome for you and your team? We'll also discuss the performance process testing. And that's where, like my colleagues spoke about, we will put everything into the test environment. We'll test through the performance cycle. If you're using an annual cycle, we'll test that annual cycle. We'll also test check-ins and anytime feedback, any components that are making up your talent management and performance process. And finally, end user training. So if your organization is doing an annual appraisal process where there's the overarching annual document and annual process that you're undertaking, we will want to make sure that we talk about end user training. What will manager training look like? What will be the practices that you want to make sure everybody's engaged in as they do the annual process? And if your process is shifting to something that's a little bit more anytime, if it's check-ins and feedback, we'd want to talk about what it means to launch those new structures to your end users. All of that would be part of our plan phase for performance management. Next slide, Carla. So the next part of the process would be execute. And that's where we would have training and mobilization of your team. So we would ensure that the end user training materials that you've prepared are adequate and ready to go. You would set up your training sessions. You would make sure that your end users know about the due dates of the processes and what to expect. We would then assign performance documents. So if you are using the annual performance documents, we'd make sure that those are assigned appropriately. We can support and supplement your HR team so that you have exactly what you need to get those documents distributed. And then we'd also work with your team to develop a structured approach to HR monitoring and oversight. That would include things like transaction management, right? If you have approvals that are going to be happening during this time of your process, you'd want to make sure that you're monitoring those transactions and making sure that those workflows are all triggering exactly the way you expect. We would also talk about support ticket management. What does your organization do to register a support ticket during the performance process? And finally, organizational goal management. If there are any organizational goals that you've implemented during the year, we would work with your team to ensure that those organizational goals are distributed appropriately and that employees can align their individual goals to those greater organizational goals. That way, you're able to have the cascading goal structure that you want and also be able to report accordingly on those goals and organizational initiatives. Next slide, please, Carla. Finally, we would talk about the audit portion of performance. So once performance has closed, what compliance-based reports will you run to complete performance? We want to see who's completed their documents, if employee acknowledgements have been received, any employee feedback that you might need to address as an HR team. We'd also want to make sure that you have your organizational metrics and goal reporting ready, and that your deadlines are met for your module dependencies. So if you have a compensation cycle coming up after performance, ensuring that everybody has their ratings in the system so that compensation can be run. We would also talk about the way that learning and succession will feed into your processes that you've developed for performance, and hopefully develop a structured approach for how you can leverage the data and the information gathered in performance to create the best experience overall in Oracle HCM and for your teams. Finally, we'd want to do a review of the cycle tickets. So any tickets that came up, any issues that were found during the cycle, we'd want to make sure we address those and think about those for enhancements and future optimizations. And finally, we'd want to initialize for the upcoming year. If there are any items that need to be put into the system for the upcoming year, perhaps you're launching check-ins for the first time. We want to make sure that those check-in documents are assigned and ready to go for the upcoming year. We could also take a look at goals, right? Setting up organizational goals for the upcoming year is another part of initialization for the next year. All of these are the components of auditing your performance cycle. And again, performance should be an ongoing practice. It should be something we're always looking to improve upon. And having the annual milestone is a great way to retrospectively look back at what's worked and also look to the future of your organization and what you want to accomplish. We hope that we can be a part of that process with you.
Thanks so much, Brandi. We did have a question that came in. The question to you is, how have you seen organizations update performance year after year?
Yeah, well, I've actually seen it with clients, but I've also seen it because we've done it. At Apps Associate, we practice what we preach, and our HCM team works hand in hand with our HR team here to figure out ways to optimize and maximize our own use of talent management and performance management. So just like all of our clients, we are ensuring that specific requirements of the business are met each year. And we're also working to, streamline the process flows. We're trying to use talent as a vehicle to achieve our organizational goals as well. And we're also trying to take in any critical feedback that we get based on employees so that we can make changes and tweaks to have a big impact. Not every organization is going to drastically change performance year after year or update processes, but knowing, what an organization has dealt with the previous year really helps us to sometimes, as I said, even make minor tweaks or data additions that can have big impact. We've also seen clients update their processes, leveraging, different key components of the module, and then they continue to expand on the module and on everything that the talent management suite has to offer, things like competencies for specific groups, rolling out new structures or new processes to pilot groups if those pilot groups seem to have what's needed to execute. So there's really a lot of flexibility with what you can do, and we enjoy collaborating with our clients to figure out the best solution for them.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over
Thank
to
you.
Roland now.
Hello, I'm Roland Owens. I'm a practice manager for the HCM practice here at Apps Associates. I have over 20 years of HCM experience with both the Oracle Cloud and EBS products. I've implemented core HR, benefits, compensation, time and labor, and payroll. I've successfully delivered Oracle Payroll in 4 different countries. Here at Apps Associates, we have a number of seasoned consultants with experience in implementing and supporting Oracle Payroll. Just a quick note on Oracle Payroll. Of course, Oracle Payroll performs all of the normal tasks that you would expect from any payroll solution. But where Oracle Payroll really shines is during more complex operations, paying employees in 1 or 2 or more legal entities within one organization, complex costing or costing for project accounting, and also more complex tax situations. In addition, Oracle Payroll simplifies the integration of costing into Oracle General Ledger and projects. The user experience is also much improved over previous versions and gives existing Oracle Cloud customers a more simple and consistent experience. For supporting year-end processing in Oracle, we use the plan, execute, and audit methodology. Although Oracle releases patches monthly, traditionally, Oracle has released specific year-end patches in September, December, and January. We start our plan period in September for this point. This period typically lasts from September to November, and that's where we run our various audit reports, including the trial year-end run, and we begin to do various configuration steps and balance adjustments that need to be performed. In December and January, we perform our execute steps. So on this slide, that's the initial and final testing, along with the process year-end. Finally, we do the audit in the audit stage in January and February. That's the final reconciliation step. During the plan period, we run your trial year-end and reconciliation reports. We'll also review any relevant tax updates provided by my Oracle support. These reports, plus the review of the tax updates, will determine what types of configuration changes or balance adjustments will be needed. The execute phase includes testing and occurs in November and December. Typically, Oracle issues year-end patches, a second round of year-end patches, I should say, in early December to catch up with any issues that may have been in the September patch. We'll test those patches. We'll give another round of full testing with those early December patches, as well as the final round of testing that occurs immediately at the end of Q4. Oracle may issue one last patch to cover any final issues during the second week of January. We'll also review any updates in that patch and determine whether or not they need to be tested. This is usually a very, very small number of customers that are affected, typically very specific issues that are uncovered during customer testing. Finally, we have the audit stage. We'll run and review a series of post-year-end reports that allow us to perform further analysis. Here, we're trying to predict any issues or corrections that may be coming down the line. Also in this stage, I've included the processing and delivery of W-2Cs. One last general point. Here at Apps, we'll be performing the plan, execute, and audit task for payroll year-end for a number of customers all at once. This gives our consultants the opportunity to speak with each other and learn regarding their findings, and the primary beneficiary of this will be you, our customer. Thank you.
Before we jump into pricing, Roland, we did have a question for you. Why is payroll year-end configuration an annual task?
Thanks for that question, Carla. Payroll year-end, every year the US government or the state and local governments could add in any kind of new balance that will populate different boxes on the W-2. And in fact, they actually could add new boxes on the W-2 themselves or reclassify how those boxes should be populated. Therefore, it requires some investigation on an annual basis.
Great, thank you. And Steve, we're going back to you for pricing.
Excellent. Thanks, Carla. First off, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the phone for taking the time to listen to the 4 speakers today. I hope that information that you just heard was beneficial and did spark some interest. If it did, I'm sure the next question is pricing and you know, how much would all of this cost? Although prices will be determined on a client-by-client basis, depending on your client specifics, we do have tiered baseline prices that we're happy to discuss in a separate call with you, one-on-one. I'll have more information on that in just a minute, but first, some background on our tiers. So Carla, if you could hit the next slide, please. Our tiers are maintain, update, and create. Maintain is exactly what it sounds like. It's us maintaining your existing configuration and really assisting and consulting on your needs for this upcoming year's requirements as needed, with really a focus on processing and questions along the way. Update, same thing. However, we do build in minimal configuration for any net new asks. And create, it's the same thing again, but this time a great deal of net new configuration. An example, going back to my benefit information, if you were to do the maintain tier in benefits, we would focus on benefit maintenance cleanup, again, your life events, your pending action items, execution of the process to both add and process the open enrollment life event, and then last, addressing the fallout from those processes. If you were to have an update phase for open enrollment, small changes, right? Again, minor configuration, maybe updating your plan rates, and one to two other changes. Create major plan designs, new plans, new options, end dating old plans, etc. But what I really do want to emphasize here is what we call our bundle and save pricing model. I think apps is continuing to be very competitive in the market by focusing on customer success before a dollar sign. We wanted to work in some discounts here based on the amount of work that you partner with us on. So similar to an Xfinity or an insurance provider, right? The more business you do with us, the bigger discount received. Xfinity will have their cable, their internet, and mobile. The more options, the cheaper it is. Same thing for insurance, home, auto, life. And again, we fit that by offering benefits, compensation, payroll, and performance. Next slide, please. Next steps, right? So I mentioned having those one-off calls to get into your specifics and your pricing. First thing, this webinar is on demand. So the steps and links below will show you how you can review this webinar again at any time. And also there's additional links and steps below to get in touch with our practice director, Lisa Inslee, or a member of our sales team for more information on the packages themselves or the associated pricing. Next slide, please. And to wrap up today's presentation, we did leave some kind words here from our loyal customers on this slide, just to give you a sense of our hard work paying off. I think some key characteristics that you would see across our workforce are things like a calming presence, charismatic, knowledgeable, organized, creative, and I think most importantly, successful. Next slide, please, Carla. And really, that's it. So again, I want to thank everyone for their time today, and we look forward to the opportunity of working with your team.